All right, we're live, guys. So welcome back for an exciting, call it Wednesday Ramblings. Today I've got some special guests on. Greg, this is the first time you're on our live show. And Greg's up in Vancouver. His business, Big Wave BI, is starting to take off. You're busy. I can't even get a hold of you anymore, Greg. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then my friend Christian Varela, he's in Puerto Rico. He helped me with, or we helped him, sent some face shields down to Puerto Rico, and the students at the University of Puerto Rico and a bunch of makers distributed throughout the island. I also found out that Christian has experience with Tableau and Power BI, so I grabbed him. I was like, Christian, come and talk on our show. And of course, we have Diego, who's a Udemy star, and he's got thousands of students and a good friend. We're all, Greg and I are in Pro Plus program with Avi Singh. Shout out to Avi and Marianne of the Pro Plus program, because that's been life-changing for me. So guys, we're going to do this for about 10 minutes. I'm going to kick it off with a question, and maybe we'll go Christian, Diego, and Greg. But we're going to start out, since Christian's got some experience with Tableau and Power BI and probably Excel too. We're going to kick it off with that, right, Christian? And if you need to do a screen share, let me know, and I'll try to get back on and do the screen share. Just one thing, if you're listening in, put in the comments where you're from, and if you have any questions for the panelists, and I'll take the questions and put them on the show and ask the panelists, right? So Christian, if you can just kind of tee it off, your experience with Tableau, Excel, and Power BI, and what are the differences? And kind of keep in mind that a lot of us are Power BI experts only. So we know DAX, we know M, but what's behind the scenes in Tableau? You had kind of a demo of some of the if statements. If you want to start out with that, that'd be awesome too.
All right. So I started using Excel, but like Excel is just like cells, and you can share things and you can do things locally, like sharing something in Excel so everybody can see. It's a little bit more difficult. If you want to do a dashboard and so people can only see and not modify the formula, it's a little bit more difficult. So that's why I started using a data visualization software like Tableau. I did an internship with Eli Lilly, and they wanted me to do a production calendar where you could see every batch that they were supposed to do the whole week from Monday to Sunday. So they wanted to do something electronically that connected with SAP, SAP. That's a business platform where they can see all the batch numbers and all the schedule. So I started using Tableau because that's what the company had. The company already established Tableau, and they had a connection with SAP and everything. So I started using Tableau to do that calendar, and I can show you a little demo of what I did. Let's see if I can share a screen here.
All right. We're going to add. All right. I'm going to add that to the stream. There you go.
All right. So here you can see this is a template of what I did. Obviously, I was working in the tablets manufacturing, so I had a different information. So we can see here, I did an example with cake manufacturing. We have work centers. We have like baking, decoration, dispensing, mixing, packaging. So what I did here, you can see these are like events where they can see the little blocks of the product name, the batch number, and they put the cursor on top of it. They can see the actual start date, end date, and the planned start and end date, and then it compares it and gives you a status. So that's how the color is shows the color. So here you can see like the filters. They can filter by year, by month, the weeks, and then the product name, work center, the status. Here you can see a legend of the different colors. So I tried doing this in Power BI and I couldn't do it. So I'm a beginner, so I'm not a pro in Power BI nor Tableau. So I don't know if I could do it in Power BI, but it was a lot easier doing it in Tableau. And I was handling also a bunch of data. So I could see the benefit from Tableau handling a lot of information is easier in Tableau. So Power BI is a lot easier because it uses like a power pivots or what pivot charts use in Excel. So if you're familiar with Excel, it's going to be a lot easier to use Power BI. Tableau needs a little bit more time to learn it. So I can show you. Let me see if I can show you. Like this. I don't think it uses DAX. It uses a different language. But here you can see it's something similar to SQL. So I did an if statement, so it could show me the status. So it says here the start date, compares it with the planned start date with the actual start date, and then it gives you a status. So I did a lot of if statements to show me the status. And then, so it's something similar to SQL. And here, how Tableau works, you put columns and rows. Compared to Power BI, in Power BI you can use you put a visualization and then you choose what data you wanna show in the visualization. So here you just put columns and rows, and it creates the visualization. So so it's a little bit different. And I could also put, like, if I put, for example, the date, I could choose if it's a year, a quarter, a month, week number, day, etc. So it's a little bit more sophisticated. I think you can do more visualizations with Power BI. With Tableau, it looks a little bit better. But Power BI is a lot easier to use. So if you want to do a simple dashboard or something, I would prefer Power BI. And if you're handling a small data, it's a lot easier with Power BI.
Oh wow! So yeah, I jump back in. So interesting, Christian. So you're saying, so let me remove the stream here. So you're thinking the Power BI is easier for smaller data sets. It's easier for a beginner to get started. But right. Tableau, it looks like the visualizations are a lot more powerful in terms of, and there's a language behind the scenes, which is not DAX, but it kind of gives you conditional statements similar to DAX, I guess. Is that?
Yeah, I was looking in Google, and I just found that it has its own language, so it doesn't use DAX. Yeah, it uses something similar to SQL. So, but gotcha. it's its own language. So
very cool. So, yeah, very interesting stuff. Yeah, that's I think a lot of our audience members will be interested in that. So Diego, we're going to jump to you real quick. So you have a lot of students coming in, wanting to learn Power BI. Do you get any from Tableau? And if they come from Tableau or Excel, what kind of conversion issues are you seeing? Do people have to relearn some stuff if they come from the other two systems?
Okay, yeah. Well, actually, I have also a Tableau course. It's a shorter one. Yeah, it's a shorter one. It's a shorter one, and it's not a lot of people are going into it. I mean, it's kind of on the backside. Yeah. My focus is Power BI. I love the program. Yeah. But yeah, well, several things that Christian was saying made sense to me in my knowledge with Power BI and Tableau, and the little bit that I know about Tableau. Yeah. And yeah, as Christian was saying, Tableau, I think on Tableau it's more powerful doing individual visualizations. Yeah. Like what he was showing that you just drag the fields. Yeah. They are considered as different fields. It's kind of a different paradigm between Power BI and Tableau. In Tableau, you have the blue pill and the green pill, right? That it means different things, and how do you use those fields, right? So you add it as rows and columns, and it automatically starts to give you the best visualizations for the job, right? For the type of data that you are adding. And then you, of course, can change it, right? But it's a different paradigm between Tableau, in that sense, to create visualizations, and Power BI. Power BI, you first need to know what is the visualization that you are looking for. Of course, you can later change it, but it has different fields, and it works a little bit different. So it's a different paradigm in visualization creation, right? Yeah. So, but the main difference, I think, is that, and this is kind of a problem it's kind of a problem. It's an advantage, but it's also a problem with Power BI, as I think. Yeah. Like Power BI, you can start making visualizations and dashboards pretty quickly. But that doesn't mean that it's easy, because as you know, it starts to when you want to do like more interesting stuff, you need to start going into Power Query, like data transformation, not Power Query, but transforming your data to use it correctly in Power BI, right? Then you have to work with the data model, right? And also the data model is different between Power BI and Tableau, right? In Tableau, you are working with a flat table, a big flat table, and in Power BI, you're working with the Star Schema, right? And then also, I mean, you can create joins in Tableau, and I also know that there's a Tableau prep that it's kind of what the Power Query does, right? But it's a different paradigm, right? And then when you start going into all of those things with Power BI, it's when things start to get interesting. And with interesting, I'm saying a little bit complicated, different concepts that go into it. And that's why I say that it's like an advantage, but also a problem. Because yes, it's easy to start. That's kind of what Microsoft team, I think, it's trying to do, like the team developing Power BI, to be really easy to use. But the problem is that it creates the illusion that it's going to be easy forever, and it's not. It's going to start getting complicated, right? And so that's the difference of paradigms. Now, with the question like converting between Tableau and Power BI, I really don't know. Like, I mean, people try to. I don't know. I really don't have an answer for that question specifically, because I don't have those types of service. But I do get to see the problems that people are getting with Power BI and the problems that they are getting with Tableau, at least on a minimum scale with Tableau, right? So with Tableau, there's it's a different language, as Christian was saying. It kind of resembles SQL. So it's different, and you do need to have a different mindset when going to any one of those. And that's what we have been looking. And actually, you say that also, like, if you get to see if people are coming from SQL or from a Excel background, you know. So it's different. Obviously, it's different. And I do think there are problems, but I don't have where specifically the problems are. For me, it was a problem on thinking about how the data model is created in Tableau versus Power BI. That was like my first, I don't know, like wall that I needed to go through to really understand how each one of the programs work, you know.
Wow, no, interesting stuff. So I'm going to come back and revisit some of what you said there, Diego, but we're going to jump to Greg. But yeah, how they're different, and how you work with the flat table and Tableau, and then work with the Star Schema. And I want to revisit that, because I think that was one of the more interesting things when I delved into Power BI, was the Star Schema. When I started advancing in my skills, just learning how to take a flat table and convert it into a Star Schema, you know, what data goes into the lookup tables, you know, and deciding what goes into the data tables, I remember was one of the harder things, one of the bigger questions I had. So Greg, but we want to jump to you, because you've been taking off recently up in Vancouver area, right? Chilliwack, British Columbia. And you know, my question to you is, you know, you're getting clients and stuff. Are any in Tableau and, you know, converting to Power BI, or any using Excel and then they want you to help them go to Power BI, or what are you kind of seeing in the market? And I even had one the other day that was talking to me about, I guess Adobe has a BI visualization tool now, and they were asking me about that. You know, and I was like, no, Power BI is the way to go. But you know, I wanted your take on, you know, kind of what you're seeing in the market out in the Vancouver area.
Sure. Yeah, definitely can comment on that. Most of these clients aren't actually local, but a couple of experiences with customers that are either switching from Tableau or evaluating that. And so I'm thinking of one in particular. They're out in the Middle East, and they're just going through a Microsoft AX implementation. So it's kind of funny. They have, I think, one person in a leadership position that's really strongly advocating for Tableau, and I think historically Tableau has been pretty strong in that region.
Yeah.
And, but everyone on the IT team is definitely pushing for Power BI and
Interesting.
trying to get Power BI in there. So they've had some proof of concept work done with both tools, and I think just based on that fact alone, I think it plays so well, obviously, with the Microsoft ecosystem. It's a natural fit.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of another client that, again, they had done some work in Tableau. I think for them, it came down to the cost. For Power BI, you can do a lot with the free version. And even if you get a few licenses, pro licenses, you can start to do a lot with sharing. And that's exactly what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, you mentioned Excel. So I think I really enjoyed, there was a talk once Rob Colley did at one of the MBAS sessions, I think it was, and he talked about Excel being, the number one programming language in the world. And it's I think it's an easy transition to go from Excel to Power BI. So
yeah, no, that's a great point. Excel to Power BI, because a lot of M, I think, is similar to the VBA, the macro languages. And so if you were ever delving into VBA and Excel, you'd jump right over. A lot of the DAX, I think a lot of people say, is similar to kind of the functions, equals, if, and stuff inside of Excel. So a lot of that skill set transfer over. Yeah, go ahead, Diego.
No, I mean, sorry, Charles. I just want to add something with Tableau versus Power BI.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Tableau is better, like, because it's because the flexibility that it allows you to work with visualizations, to create different types of visualizations, pretty good visualizations, well designed. It gives you a lot of tools to work with that, I think, but it also works with the flat table. So I think that it's better suited, Tableau, for kind of data science perspective, where you are analyzing like the results from a survey. You are analyzing the results from your research, or you are analyzing, like, I don't know, an experiment that you run, right? And Power BI, because of the perspective of the data model, where you have the dimension table and the what's the name of the other ones? The fact table. It's more suited, I think, for analyzing business information. Like, you have your customers, you have your sales people, you have product information, you have the calendar table, and then you have all of the transactions, right? So I think that's the main difference. Of course, you can do anything on both tools, but I think that's how you can think about Tableau. Like, do I want to do an individual visualization, maybe for presenting results from a specific case, or for example, for journalism? And for Power BI, I think it's more oriented to dashboards, operative dashboards, and those type of analysis,
Right. No, that's fascinating, because I just talked to somebody the other day. They used Minitab and SAS for some of their statistical analysis. And, if you're coming from the survey standpoint, or, Tableau may make more sense if you're converting from that. But Power BI, all I do is the business, the financials, the quality type of data, process data, timing, is stuff delayed. And when you're looking for bottlenecks and stuff, I find that Power BI is really easy to use. So no, that's a good point. And then to Greg's point, I just want to mention, it's interesting, the pricing strategy of Microsoft, right? They have, if you want to download Power BI desktop, and it's free. You can author and you can send the PBIX file, and it's absolutely free. So it gets people started, for free. And then, their other strategy is the E5 license, I think, includes Pro. So if you're at a company with an E5 license, you have Power BI, Pro already included, I believe. So you can get started that way if you're with a company with an E5 license. So it's a brilliant strategy. And I'm not as familiar with Tableau, but maybe we'll shelve that, and we can talk about that too. So, but I want to go on to, so that was just question number one. I think it says the timer is 20 minutes just on that topic. So I may have you guys back soon because this could go on for a while. But Power BI consultant, why would you hire a Power BI consultant? That's kind of the next question I want to kind of address and go to. And maybe, Christian, since you are just getting to Power BI, so we'll start with you. But what are you created a report in Power BI for the face shields distribution? Just was there any roadblocks, or what is the next step? What are the next questions you have with Power BI? Because you're an interesting case, and because you have you just started, right? And I really want to learn from you what roadblocks. What's the next thing you want to learn with Power BI?
Right.
So let's start.
So when I did the Power BI report, I was using data from Excel. So when I used that, the data was already present. So I wasn't doing any like analytics with the data. It was just like plug and play, like showing some data I had on the table, and simple calculations, like a sum. Like I had the 3D printed face shields and the injection molded. And I just did a sum on the 3D printer versus the injection molded. So it was simple calculations. So I wasn't doing like a complicated analysis with the data. So I've heard that when you're talking, you're mentioning that you like analyze the financials of a company and all those things. Like I'm not there yet. I don't know how to do it. I don't know like examples of things that you could do with Power BI in that sense. So I just use it like a simple visualization software, like to show cool, like a cool visualization of what I was showing on the table, right? So like I didn't do a complete analysis. So I would say that would be my next question. Like, how can I get a visualization and do like more analysis with that data, right? So yeah.
Gotcha. No, that's an interesting point. So you can get, with the implicit measures, it's already pretty powerful. You download desktop, you pull the implicit measures, you write some simple DAX, and then I think for me the next step is if this is a question the audience I think is hearing is, yeah, it's free. Why would I hire a Power BI consultant, right? So Diego, I think you touched on this, the Star Schema, adding a calendar table. I know those are kind of the things that are the next steps, using filter, using calculate, these more complex functions. And maybe, from your experience, when do people take that step or ask that question is like, man, I downloaded it, but I'm at a point where I should just hire somebody to come and help me. When does that happen? At what point?
At what point does that happen? Okay, that's an interesting question. Well, the first question is, I think it's, do I need a Power BI consultant, right? Yeah. So it's a question that we first need to answer, right? Do I need a Power BI consultant? And it's pretty easy to start. That's what I was telling, that it's kind of an advantage, but it's also a problem. Because when you start, I do remember when I started working with it, I had a mess with my data model. And I remember seeing one of Avi's videos where he was saying, how do you know if you're a newbie on Power BI? And that's when I realized that I was a newbie, because what he was saying is exactly what I was doing, right? So
interesting.
It's easy to start, but you start to complicate it when you're starting, because you don't know the best practices. So if you're looking, like, I think one of the first things that you need to do is to know if you need a Power BI consultant, is to know, okay, can you connect any table in any format that you have? For example, can you connect a table that it's in how the budget is sent throughout the organization?
Yeah.
Can you connect how your ERP is downloaded the information? Like, can you connect that to Power BI and analyze it? Like, make the necessary transformations to be able to analyze it easily in Power BI. Mm-hmm. And the other question is, is your data, like, how does your data model look? Does it look as, this is kind of difficult because you don't know what's the best practices.
Yeah.
Like, so how do you compare? Like, if you have a lot of tables and you're connected each and every table with every other table that you can come up, I think it's time for hiring a Power BI consultant. Like, when you are looking at all the relationships that you have between tables, and then you start to not being able to add information, and then you add another table, like, that's, I think it's time for a Power BI consultant. And also, for example, if you are not able to create, for example, one of the problems that I used to have when I was using Power BI inside inside what's the name, an enterprise, the headquarters of a company.
Yeah.
When I was working in an office, in a corporate job. Yeah. I do remember that I was getting a lot of, I wasn't able to create like intermediate calculations, like everything for each customer, and then get me the average. That was something that we needed to do, like, in all of our analysis, and we did it with Excel pretty easily. You just use a pivot table, and then you get the average of all of that. It's pretty easy to do. But in Power BI, I wasn't able to do it. And when I was talking with other people about Power BI, that was the thing that they were saying me that, but yeah, Power BI, it's good for visualizations, but I cannot do this pretty simple stuff that I can do in 3 steps or 2 steps in Excel, right? So that's when I think you can also go and get a Power BI consultant for, if you cannot do those type of calculations, it's not that it isn't possible. It's that you are still lacking some concepts and skills required to work effectively with Power BI, right? So that's what I will think, like, these 3 things. Like, first, can you connect any data table to Power BI and analyze it? And transform it? Then do you have a lot of tables, and every table is connected to any other table? You don't know why it's connected. And the other one will be, can you create like advanced calculations that it's supposedly more easy to do in Excel? It's also easy to do in Power BI. You just need to know the concepts and have the skills, right?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think, when I started Power BI, I remember, like a year and a half ago, I still remember I had a parallel copy of the data in Excel, because there were just certain things that I was like, man, I don't know how to do this in DAX. And so I would go to Excel and do some filters, and I was like, it was easier for me then. But I think today, I rarely touch Excel anymore, because I just go into desktop, import the data file, merge a couple of data sources, and then, today it's easier for me in Power BI. And it was a shift. It was probably about 6 months ago where I said, man, it's just too easy now. But that's a good point. If you get to that point, I think it would be helpful to have somebody come in with the fundamentals to build that data model, right? And I'm just gonna, before we go to Greg, I went to Emboss, I think a year ago, in Atlanta, and I sat with Gilbert at Formu. He's in Australia. He's got a blog, and I was like, Gilbert, what is the first thing you look at when you go into a company and you want to see if they are ready for Power BI or what they need to do? It's like, what do you look at? And he said, the first thing I do is I open up the data model, and usually it's a mess. And he said, the second thing I do is, Star Schema, and I start turning it into a good data model to answer the questions that they want to ask. So it was interesting, this Gilbert's been doing it for years, and he's got a blog and stuff. And that was the first thing he said, was that data model. If you can get it into a Star Schema and you learn that, that's gold right there. So, so Greg, we're going to go to you. Power BI consultant, I know, probably our audience members, a lot of people, some people are like, what is Power BI still? It's not as prevalent as we think it should be, because we know the power and how, but do you still hear that question? It's like, man, I use Excel. Why would I hire somebody to do Power BI, and build a data model? When does that switch occur?
Yeah, definitely. I'm still getting that question a lot. I find that I'm educating quite a few individuals or potential clients on what Power BI actually is.
Yeah.
I was going to say one of the biggest things, you guys touched on a lot of great points. I mean, look, when you first see the data model, yeah, like I've seen quite a few that are just a mess, and they kind of want to go straight to the visualization piece and creating measures and fix the immediate problem, but the underlying problem is definitely the data model. I was going to say, I think the one obvious reason why to reach out to a consultant would be the return on investment. I mean, I think we could probably think of, I'm thinking of several examples where ones that I've worked on where it's saved, hours and hours every week, and it's been in use for years now. So you're talking thousands of dollars now. Of course, if you've got the ambition and the interest and the time to kind of, do the learning and take the time to read the books and set a good groundwork, I would say go for it. But you can definitely get a boost by pulling someone like us in and, either getting it all done. And I've had both. I've had some that just want coaching and help along the way where they're hitting roadblocks. And I think we all hit the roadblocks. And then some that just want to be totally hands off and just rely on our expertise to build up the whole thing. And the return on investment is huge. I mean, even the opportunity cost, if you're kind of fiddling around for months and months, even thinking back early days when I was first learning to connect to data sources and stuff, things would take 3 months that, I could probably do in a couple hours now. It's that learning curve is there. And another reason, just I think being in this position, we're exposed to so much more. So the problem you might be hitting, we've hit several times. Like in the last 2 weeks, I can think of several things connecting to OAuth 2 sources, connecting to data sources where there's a mix, like a folder with a mixture of CSVs and a mixture of zip files. So writing custom functions in Power Query to grab those sources. The things that are coming at us, writing or setting up role level security, things like that, like that individuals might not be doing every single day, might hit those walls, right? So that's where it makes sense to pull a consultant in.
No, that makes so a lot of good stuff. So special connections to different databases that are kind of unique. What were the other ones? So all those level security.
Just this week, and I guess I didn't mention it, but just also even just we're connected to a lot of Microsoft MVPs. So even just this week, I was reaching out to one of them to get help with connecting to Xero, and that's an accounting software that has been particularly tricky. But just getting over that, I know a lot of people that are wanting to connect to that software and probably stumbling, on the same thing. So.
Yeah, no, good points.
Also,
it's true. That.
Charles, I wanted to mention that I've seen Excel spreadsheets that have power pivot tables or pivot charts, and people say like I could do this in pivot tables and pivot charts, but then they put the Excel file in Microsoft Teams and everybody can see it inside the company. But then if they modify something, they change the whole data.
Yeah.
So maybe you could use Power BI and just send a link with that, and they can just see the.
Oh, do we lose audio, Christian?
Yeah, I'm also
sorry. Yeah. So that's a way that you can combine Excel with Power BI without actually having the person see the data in Excel and modifying anything. So maybe that's something that you could use a Power BI consultant or something that to do simple things. Like you don't have to do complicated things in Power BI. You can also do simple things that you could also do in Excel, but the sharing part is a lot easier with Power BI.
Oh my gosh, that is I think that's huge, and that leads into the second question. So Christian, you kind of answered that already. But if you go from Excel, why would you go to Power BI? One of them is, we've all done it. We've all taken an Excel file and we've emailed it to somebody, and they edit it, and they have a local copy, and now you have a different copy. Or you put it up in SharePoint and somebody goes and deletes a bunch of rows or changes a cell. And Greg was talking about role level security, and some of the members in the audience, role level security is when a person can log in, let's say Christian, and, let's say if I build a report and I was like, well, Christian should only have these rows. He's a sales manager for Puerto Rico, so I'll just give him a view to these rows. So role level security lets you just see certain rows. And the other beauty of Power BI is, when you share a report, people can't manipulate and change the data behind the scenes. That's I remember that was a huge benefit, was that, it's sheltered from that change. It's just a view of the data. You don't have the risk of somebody going in and destroying your whole data set. So a huge value in that. So thanks for that, Christian. And then, I'm going to jump to Excel stories, kind of people that are jumping from Excel or other tools to, and using a lot of time in maybe other tools, and where the ROI comes in, kind of to Greg's point. And this is a kind of a fun story is I was, working with somebody, and they were telling me that they, I heard this story just last week too, is, there's still some companies that print out, copies of their spreadsheets, and they highlight, it's like, oh, these, the stuff you would do with the lookup table. It's like, this is this category. So those are going to be in yellow, and then I'm going to sum those up over here, and they'll write, and, the huge stacks of paper that are highlighted and grouped and stuff. This still happens. I've heard stories just last week of people still printing out paper copies, even with tools like Power BI around, people are defaulting to this. And so with Power BI, I can save them hours and hours and hours of, month end type stuff, or, quarterly reports where they go and take this. But just Greg, if you have a story that you can tell, and we'll go around the block, and Christian, you've already kind of added to this, so you don't have to answer. But so Greg, if you have a story you can tell of how you saved somebody, was there something where they were spending hours, be it Excel? I mean, I used to do this, take an Excel file, and then the next month I would copy the cells in, and then underneath, and have this huge file. And then every month I'd copy more in and build a pivot chart off of it. And it, after a while, you don't have the memory on your machine. It's just like too slow. So,
right. Yeah, I can think of two quick stories. My own experience was definitely coming from Excel. I loved Excel, and early days of my career, learned to write simple macros, and that only grew over time. Building pivot tables. I think one area where Power BI shines, and like you, I've pretty much, most of my time is in Power BI now. I'll spend my time there. But have you ever tried to build a pivot table and then put a second pivot table in there and compare data? That's one area where it just falls apart.
Yeah,
you have to blow it up, and it doesn't maintain reference back to the original source. I'm thinking of a client where I inherited a spreadsheet that was populated by two different ERP systems. This was an oil and gas company. They were looking at millions of rows of code, or lines of data, track maintenance activities. And the file I inherited, was honestly a bit of a mess. I mean, there were multiple pivot tables, links, and VLOOKUPs to pivot tables. And it was, the end product allowed us to just with click of a button, refresh and produce far better dashboards, better quality looking graphs, and more organized. And it was just that manual effort that just got lifted.
Yeah.
In Power BI. I mean, it could have been done in Power Query within Excel. I think the visuals were a little bit stronger on the Power BI side.
Right. Oh, interesting. Yeah. I just have a quick story too before we go to Diego. Even within Power BI itself, I took a data model. It was a flat file somebody imported, and it took forever to this is kind of why would I hire a Power BI consultant? It took forever when you're trying to do visuals with a flat file, because everything's duplicated in all the columns. So I split this huge file into a Star Schema, and I had probably 20 lookup tables. Once I did that, all the lookup tables, everything was collapsed, and it was duplicates. So once I built that, I mean, it was instantaneous. Once I started dragging and dropping and doing the DAX measures on the lookup tables, it was incredible. I talk with my hands. So I'm hitting my microphone. Sorry.
Yeah.
But it was incredible, the performance, and even within Power BI itself, a consultant can help you speed up your reports so much more. So there's a gap from the manual process or from the Excel, but even within Power BI itself, I found, you can really speed up the performance within Power BI and make it so much faster.
Yep.
So yeah, Diego, if you want to, do you have any stories of sharing, people going from kind of Excel or from an older and how they save time by jumping to Power BI?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the story that I have, it's my own. It's and I want to tell you because I lived it, obviously, because it was me that was doing everything.
Yeah.
And I do remember, when I graduated college, I don't know, like 4 years ago.
Yep.
And I started working as soon as I graduated, right? So my job was as an analyst, a business analyst, with different roles, right? But doing kind of the same thing, right? Yep. And when I was working there, I needed to do a lot of analysis and reports. And I do remember, like, one of my last, I think it was the second to last type of analysis that I made. I was learning all of these tools, these new tools, or these tools that I didn't learn in college, but I started learning when I went into the business setting, like Python and working with R and Power BI and Tableau, right? And that's when I started to try to incorporate these concepts into my work, right? So I was trying to incorporate concepts of Jupyter notebooks in Excel. And it works this way. You have a large document, and then you start making like calculations, and you start creating variables. And then in the next step, that it's like a big cell, you can make analysis using previous variables that you created, right? And previous steps. And you were importing data sets and all of those things. And then you had this big document that it's called Jupyter notebooks, where you have all of the analysis, and I could send it to you, and you can just read it, and you're going to see everything that I did, right? You were able to see everything, and at the last step, you were able to see the final result, right? If that's what you wanted. So the thing is that I try to incorporate those concepts into me using Excel, right? And having like, okay, so I will have my data in this part of the Excel sheet, and then in the lower part, I'm going to add another type of analysis using that data, and like that. That was my workflow, right? So when I was doing that, like there were, like, I remember, like 11 steps that I needed to make to come up with the final analysis, and I was explaining in each step like what was being done, right? And this was like a way of documenting my steps, so that any other person that I sent the report to were able to see it and to replicate, right?
Yeah.
And so I have this long document and all of these steps, but it was pretty difficult to maintain, because if I wanted to add more data, I needed to add first rows, and then make sure that all of the variables that all of the ranges are correct, like I didn't miss any range, and the ranges are getting all of the data. So it was a lot of I don't know how to say work, and you had to be really like checking each and every step that you were making every time you were updating the info, right? And then you had the additional questions that you didn't plan for. So if you want to slice for region, for example, and you didn't have that in your analysis, it wasn't something that you were going to be able to come up during the meeting. You will need to go back to your desk and start adding this, incorporating this type of analysis or segmentation or slicer in your analysis, right? And it was something really difficult. First, don't make sure that everything is working fine, right? And add all the information. Then if you wanted to do these type of things, it was pretty difficult, and like adding more analysis. And the other one, it's I forgot it. It's so updating it. Like it was taking forever because I needed to make all of these things previously, right? Every time that I was updating it. So at the end, I did use it in how do you say it? I created it in Power BI.
Yeah.
This type of analysis. It was faster. It was not perfect. With what I know now, I know that it will be better. Yeah. Even though I know it will be better. But even though that I didn't have all of these experience that I have now, and concepts and knowledge and network, it's when I was able to improve it, right? So I don't know, like I went from 3 days, I don't know, for updating something that was able to be done in 2 hours maybe, and without errors, and it's going to be like easier, right? And now maybe I can do it like 10 minutes or something, like to update it. So
oh my gosh, so yeah, that brings so many memories, because I remember writing VBA code, macro in the macro, and then there's nobody that could figure out, what my code was, the logic I did behind the scenes. And if there was a mistake, who knows what I did. But with Power Query, I think that's a huge advantage, because it's self-documenting, and each step you can name it and you can add notes, and everybody can go down and click on the different steps and understand your logic, right? Which is a huge advantage in terms of understanding, 6 months from now, if I go back to my VBA code, I was like, I don't know what this means, but in Power Query and DAX now, you can follow people's logic. So, that's a huge point. And kind of on the refresh thing too. So you can make our Power Query reports dynamic, like select just column number 2, remove the first 2 rows, and then go to the last row. And then the auto refreshes, like you said, Diego, if you need to change something, and you've got it encoded as the A1 reference, the cells, like, did I include this column? Going back and adding that to the slicer. But with Power BI, I've done those dynamic lookup tables where I do duplicate table, and then I remove duplicates, and then, take that column and tie it into the data table. And so if somebody adds an extra filter category, it just shows up in my report on a refresh, and doing stuff like that, just, in the old world in Excel, man, that would take, I'd be like, where did I add it in the code, and where is it into? But now it's so fast, right? So, oh my gosh, yeah, your stories, those bring back a lot of memories. Many hours in Excel VBA code.
So right now, I'm in the process of learning how to do that in Power BI, right? Because what I showed before, I had a start date and end date, right? Yeah. So sometimes the start date and end date, the task, it took like the duration was a couple of days. So I did a VBA code. So if the task lasted 2 days, for example, it copied the same row for each date in that date range, right? So I did a VBA code for that. So in that way, I could show the same event in multiple days in what I showed in Tableau. So I did a VBA code for that, and then I put a macro button where I could click the button, and then it put on the code, right? Yeah. So I know I could do that in Power BI. Yeah. Automatically, so I could create a new row for each date in the date range. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to learn. So I don't have to use VBA and all those things to manually update the data. So that's what I'm trying to learn, and hopefully I could learn that and make my life a lot easier.
Oh, you're in the right group right here. I'm ready to help you. Diego is probably like Chavan and Greg too. Is like, ooh, I should help you. I just had a question for you. So along the lines of what you were doing in Puerto Rico, you were distributing face shields. You had a group of people 3D printing, and then maybe talk about the story. So before, how were you getting updates to people on the distribution? Was it just post each day? But then you went to the Power BI report, right? And that automatically updates. So people can just go to that report and see your impact to the island and see how many were going out, who you were getting it to. So I'm just curious on, the impact of that report, that Power BI report? And did you get any comments back from that?
Right. So previously when we started, I did an Excel spreadsheet. It has a lot of tabs with different information.
Yeah.
One of the tabs has a huge table with all the information, all the donations we have made, with all the contact information, or the amount we donated, the date, and it has a huge table that we put in Microsoft Teams. So some people have access to it, and when we donate, we update the information manually. We have to we obviously copy and paste the new information. So we had that in an Excel. So so then I had a new tab with a pivot chart where I could show the summary of the table. So I used Power BI because I didn't want people to. I wanted to share the information with everyone. I send you a link and you can see the information, right? You don't have to access the Excel. And also, when people were posting things in Excel, sometimes they like removed rows or modified formulas, and it created a problem with me. So with the information, and it didn't show the correct information, the correct data. Yeah. So that's why I moved with Power BI. I saw your report, the report you did with PDC 19. Yeah. So I did something similar. Since I had played with Tableau before, and I played a little bit with Power BI. I decided to let's see what I can do with Power BI, right? So I started doing the report. Yeah. And the benefit of that was that now I can post the link on Facebook, for example, and everybody that likes the page can see the link, and they can see a live update of all the donations we have made, and they can actually see where all the, because we're receiving money from different people that they're donating, right? So we want to show people that what we're doing with their money, that we're actually doing something with the money and doing donations, and they can see where the pages are going. Yeah. So that's something that that's a lot beneficial, even for the group. Now they don't have to access the Excel and see the pivot chart and see, that's how this is the summary of what we're doing. They can just see the link and see. And also the visualization is a lot nicer. You can see a more organized view of the data. So I would say that that's the benefit of doing a Power BI report instead of using Excel, right? So
yeah. No, that's true. It's and I've got comments. I shared your report on my LinkedIn profile, and a couple of people said, it was really professional. It conveyed, I think what you're saying is trust, right? People could trust that you were doing the right thing because here was data saying, we're using your money and we're making an impact on the island, and, distributing these face shields to the right people, to hospitals. I think you had a list of organizations that were receiving it. So, that's a beautiful story of using data to, make an impact and to show people, how you were making an impact. So really cool story. So, guys, I said 30 minutes. It's the clock says 52 up here, 52 minutes. You kind of see how these things go. I mean, this has been a phenomenal talk show. I've gotten so much knowledge out of just talking to each of you. I think we could go on for another 30 minutes. So Greg, Diego, and Christian, I'm inviting you back, because if we want to continue this, I would love to get your feedback again. But I'm going to end on one question then. If you were going to give a tip to somebody that was just starting, what would it be? If you were just starting in Power BI and you want to get a good understanding, I think mine would be, research the Star Schema, the lookup tables, the data tables, and that structure, because when I learned that, and that made a huge difference for me in terms of my Power BI models. The performance, the measures were so much easier once you get the Star Schema. Then you write the filters just on the lookup tables, and it was just so much faster. So I think that would be my tip for anybody out there that's maybe kind of in a roadblock. So maybe we'll go round table. We'll go Greg. What are your thoughts on what is a most important tip you would give to somebody just starting?
Sure. Two things come to mind. I think just learning the fundamentals and how measures work, and just totally understanding, getting a good groundwork as far as the DAX language, I think is pretty important.
Yeah.
but when I'm thinking about it, on my own journey, that came a little bit later. I think the earlier you can do that, you can definitely get started without that. And so maybe the other tip would be just get involved. Like there's some good community forums out there, and just start getting involved with the community, and just you can learn off other people's questions, and just start to learn that way. I think both of those would be a good way to get started. Follow some good blogs out there. I started with Power Pivot Pro. He's still putting out a lot of good stuff. Guys in the Cube videos. Avi's program is fantastic. He's got a good 1 hour intro to Power BI, which I would recommend as a perfect starting point. Reed Higgins is putting out a lot of great stuff. Could go on and on.
Kerbal. One thing I want to add is Kerbal was phenomenal, because with her stuff you can like search for just a measure, and then I've supplemented with Avi's book and his program. But those are good points. Is the community, I think, is Microsoft MVPs. Parv, all the people in this community are really super helpful. So those are good points. So. Yeah, thanks, Greg. Diego, what are your thoughts? Just on anybody getting to start. And you have your classes in Spanish, because one thing I have heard is there's a language barrier. Some of the AI, some of the voice recognition is English based. So if you go to other languages, it gets more difficult. But any tips, Diego, for somebody just starting?
Sure. Well, two things. The first one is, what you were saying, Charles, the Star Schema, and research the Star Schema. But if you can, the way to get to a Star Schema, I mean, it's not the only way, but the how do you get to a Star Schema? It's with the Power Query, unless you have pretty good data tables in your organization, in your ERP, right? If not, you will need to use Power Query. So I will go to really learn how to use Power Query to transform any data table into a Star Schema, right? Always have the Star Schema as your end goal, but for getting there, you will need you will need the Power Query, right? And the second thing that I can recommend, or a tip to learn Power BI, it's to take an instructor learning path, because it's really difficult to understand what's being told or what's being said in just seeing like independent videos, because there are a lot of concepts going on. You need to know concepts about relationships, about the Star Schema, the different tables, and also about Power DAX with the filter context, the role context, and the context transition. So I will recommend for anyone trying to learn Power BI, don't try to power through it. Just go with some coach. It can be Avi, for sure. Avi, it's one of the it's a really good program, but you also have other programs like Ruth Pozuelos from Furball, Matt Allington, that he's focusing on DAX for beginners. Obviously, the Italians, Marco Russo and Alberto Ferrari. I wouldn't go with that program, at least at the beginning, because it's kind of advanced. And I don't know, there are a lot of other Enterprise DNA from Sam McKay. And I will go with an instructor approach to learning Power BI, because that's when I really understand how to work with the program, right? When I went into Avi's program, and that's when I really learned how to use it, the different concepts that are being used, and that will be my tip.
Oh yeah, no, that's great points. Instructor led. I was just talking to Christian before we started the show. And Christian was like, there's so many terms out there, implicit, explicit. And he was like, where do you get Power BI? How do you get started? But along your point, Diego, if you have an instructor led one, they would help you with all those concepts, role level security. I remember a year ago, I was like, what does this mean? And now it's like, oh, it's so simple. It's so simple. But yeah, back then I was like, I have no idea what this means. So where do I go? And if you had an instructor to lead you through, that would be so much more helpful. So, so Christian, just, what do you have anything you want to say to the audience?
Yeah, so I'm a newbie, so I don't have a lot of tips, but something that I recommend if you're starting with Power BI, rename the measures, things that you can remember, and if you like access it a couple days after or a couple months after, you can remember and understand what the measure is for. Also, if you're doing a measure, put comments on the formula so you can remember like, oh, this does this. Because if you have a huge formula, then oh, why did I do this and all those things. So I will say that if you're doing something, rename the things for something that not only you, but if someone accesses and continues your project and also understand what you're doing. So yeah, I will say that would be my tip. You're starting with Power BI.
Yeah, thanks. Wow, guys. So just on the last note, so if you want to watch any more of these videos, follow me on LinkedIn because you'll get indications of the broadcast. Every Wednesday I do them, and this group, I'm bringing you guys back. So I'm Greg, Big Wave BI. You have the website, LinkedIn, and you're up in the Chilliwack, Vancouver area, but you've got clients all over the world. So, your specialty, I think, is project management type BI reports, right?
Yeah, and manufacturing, I'd say.
Manufacturing, yep. Lean and all types of, manufacturing type stuff. Diego, you've got the classes in Spanish and Ser Data Pro.
Yeah.
Is correct. Yep.
That's correct.
And then, LinkedIn profile, go find, I was so, I looked up your profile and you've got like 3,000 something connections or followers. I'm like, wow, Diego's he's famous. So, and then Christian, you're just starting out on your journey, just graduated. Big point is mechanical engineering degree. I think you made the statement. It's like, I'm a mechanical engineer. I learned Tableau. I learned Power BI. It's not impossible. You're an inspiration, man. And your efforts in Puerto Rico, that the whole group, Makers Against COVID, hats off to you. I'm glad I was able to support you guys down there. And, so when you get your website up, let us know. We'll broadcast it out, so good job down there. So thank you. All right, guys.
That's you guys. Thank you. It was amazing.
Yeah, thanks, Greg, Christian. What I'm going to do is I'm going to chop this video up into smaller sections, and I'll let you know, just chunks of information. And I'm going to have to shorten that first question down because we went for, I think, like 30 minutes on that Tableau versus Power BI versus Excel, right? So, yeah, it's great to see you guys. We'll get together again and tune in next week, right? So,
see you, Charles.
Guys. Bye.
Thank you.